to the a la carte lunch with Laurie. I'm Taren Grom, editor and co-founder of PharmaVOICE magazine. And it's my honor and privilege to moderate today's last lunch with Laurie. Sadly, after 15 years, Laurie is matriculating out of her role as president and CEO and transitioning to the next phase of her journey. Over the past 15 years, Laurie has provided exceptional stewardship of the HBA, guiding the association to extraordinary growth, developing a world-class brand, and positively influencing thousands of careers. Today, we're turning the proverbial table on her and putting her in the hot seat to answer questions that have been submitted by the HBA community over the past couple of weeks. As we are streaming live on the website, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, you all still have the opportunity to pose your own questions to Laurie. Just type your questions in the comment tab, and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can over the next hour. And when we're done here, we encourage you to log into the drop-in Zoom happy hour celebration for more fun. Login details were sent previously, and they will be provided in the chat. Before you kick us off with the first question, I do want to just say that we had a little bit of a technical difficulty when we started off this morning. So apologies if the sound sounds a little bit tinny. But nevertheless, let's go. Hi, my friend. How are you today?
Hello, Taren. I am really pleased to be here, but it's also kind of bittersweet on what this is about. But let's enjoy our hour together.
I am very much looking forward to it. So we have a lot of great questions. And the first is, you're unusual because you've had a new boss every single year for the last 14 years as you reported to the chair of the board. How did you adapt to a new style every 365 days? And then as a follow-up, any lessons that can be helpful for all of us who go through transitions?
You know that you are right. It is a little bit odd to have a new boss absolutely every year, except for 1 year. I got to have Rebecca Vermeulen as my boss for 2 years. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. For me, it's like your first day of school. I don't know whether you remember back in the day when it was that excitement about your new boss, and it's sort of a fresh start. I found I learned so much from the chair of the board that it was just the next opportunity to work with a different personality, someone who has a different leadership style, has different views, and it made me more adaptable. We talk about resiliency. You need to be resilient to be able to really gear up pretty quickly to their expectations. But remember, it's not just the chair of the board, it is the board itself. And our boards have always been just the most incredible group of leaders. So yeah, so I'd say what you could take away from this is one of the things we talk about on the staff team, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And so look at a new boss as a gift to learn from. And the advice I give is, if you do have a boss, this would have been hard for me, but if you do have a boss that isn't ideal, you really should look for your next boss, because your boss is incredibly important to your career optimization.
Absolutely. And at the same time, as you are working with your current boss, you're also onboarding your new boss. So sometimes you have to work with different styles and personalities.
That's true.
So what was it, next question, what was it like coming to the HBA as the first staff position for the organization? Talk about having to carve out your own path.
Well, when I started the job before the HBA was moving into nonprofit, and Dot McKelvey, the HR director, had said to me after we had been interviewing, "You're a builder," and I didn't know what she meant by that. I found out what she meant by that, which is I really, really enjoy building things. I like that problem solving, here's, you know, what's in front of you, and maybe it's not ideal, or maybe there's an opportunity and you've got to grab it. And how are you going to do it? You're going to need to have people and get the team around you. I just find that so exhilarating that I stepped into it probably too naively, not realizing how many resources you really need to build a global organization, coming from global organizations where that was already in place. So I learned it, sort of all the jobs firsthand. And I think it made me a better, more well-rounded person. So that's how I entered and how I embraced it.
Those of us who've known you a long time joke about the fact that you didn't buy your own laptop. And they, you call yourself a builder, but you're also, as those strength finders have determined, you are a pure yellow too. So what does that mean for your leadership style?
The term infinite hope, I think applies to me. Glass, it's not even glass half full. It's, I feel blessed to have the glass. All right. I just try always to see how to make the best. I'm getting some echoes. How to make the best of things. And that has helped me enormously to be able to be flexible, to deal with different personalities that one has in an association. I think one has that in every organization. I think an association, it's that on steroids. So being able to meet someone where they are, understand what their needs are, and how can I help? So having that how can I help mentality has stood me well over the years. Meeting people where they are, would you consider that to be your greatest leadership strength? I have a quote that I have said to you before, Taren. It's Lao Tzu. I believe it's an ancient Chinese really philosopher, and the leader is best when people barely know he is there, that he exists, that when his work is done, his aim is fulfilled, they will say, we did it ourselves. And so where I think that leadership, how that translates into a leadership strength, it is that I don't want to be out, even though quite often I get pushed out front, to be on stage. That's not actually what I want to do. I want to be part of a group that accomplishes something. And in doing so, it is about that collective wisdom. And I feel that's my greatest strength, is bringing people to the table and sharing and being willing to share, to be vulnerable and say, this is what I think. And this is, that theory of brainstorming. There's no bad idea. And that's how you end up finding some of the most amazing, innovative, and fast moving things. So that's what it's kind of connected, but I would say it is really about being the leader from behind. So tell me, what is the best piece of advice you never took? Probably to marry my husband. No, I said never took. Oh, never took. Oh, well, but that the advice was, are you crazy? Oh. So, and the background to that is I was living in Seattle working as a pharmacist, and what I didn't know, my husband to be was doing his MBA. He's British and was over doing an exchange program. And kind of we met and fell in love, and we moved to the UK. So my friends thought I was absolutely out of my mind. So they were more of the, what are you doing? Stay here, etc. So that was their best advice that I chose not to take. And I'm happy I did. And you got over the language barrier. So look, there is a language barrier too. Two countries divided by a common language. That's very funny. On a more serious note, over the past 15 years as CEO and more recently as president, what would you consider some of your biggest accomplishments? Well, since I work for an organization whose whole mission is gender equity and parity, I would say it's the collaborative. We have something called the Gender Parity Collaborative. We started a couple of years ago, and it was so critical in my mind to have this. because we were doing a great job progressing women through the talent pipeline. And all we were doing was making more unhappy, frustrated women who were ready to take the reins of leadership and weren't progressing. And what we recognized is it wasn't them. Women don't need fixing. It's organizations that need fixing, right? It's the infrastructure, the level of systemic bias sometimes, but just the processes have been built for men who tend to have a family behind them to support them. And so when we started the collaborative, it was absolutely focused on companies coming together to share what they were doing, how things were missing, perhaps that were supporting women more actively. So when we did that, we're just moving into our third year with 15 companies, and we've already blown the statistics out of the water in terms of how these companies are doing with the representation of women at every level. So that piece, if you're thinking about that kind of mission level, but when I think about the pieces that I'm really just so grateful for and I'm proud of, is that I was able to do it with so many leaders. This was not me and a little team doing this. I was able to meet so many leaders across the globe who I now call friends. And because we didn't have money, I'd stay in their homes. They'd pick me up at the airport. We would just, we'd all be huddled around a dining room table working on a program that we would cobble together, and best ideas. And that joy to see the outcome. I have companies literally coming to us saying, how did you do that? We want to do that. And these are companies that have huge budgets, have huge teams. I am so proud of that scrappiness that didn't look scrappy. It looks professional. It looks finished and polished, and it's effective. And I'm so proud of that. And that wasn't me. That was the people that were there. My piece was that Lao Tzu piece, which is just encouraging.
There's Lao Tzu again. Let's go back to the Gender Collaborative. So for companies that aren't part of the collaborative and for members of the HBA community who want to widen the path in their own organizations, what are some pieces of advice that they can do on their own? What should they be thinking about?
So what a company should be thinking about as they are trying to tackle gender equity and parity is it isn't as big a step as you would think. It truly is just making this an equitable playing field for your employees. And so some of the things you can look at that our collaborative has looked at, looking at it, making sure you're engendering males as allies, making sure you're looking at your data. And when you do that, you're looking to see, are women progressing at the same rate and pace? And don't forget intersectionality, right? Are those women of all women of color, as well as white Caucasian women? And then I guess the third at the moment that's so important is when we go back to work, right? What does work look like? We don't want to penalize women that choose, like right now, everyone's at home because they had to be. But when people are able to choose moving back to work or not, it could look like a choice. And what we don't want is women to get left behind in advancement promotions. So I think that's pretty much some of the, really the basics. Look at your data. Make sure men are clearly able to support and step up. And then after that, it's thinking about how you're putting work back together, because this is your beautiful opportunity to recreate work that works for everyone.
That's awesome, Laurie. One of the questions that's coming in from our Twitter sphere, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebooking, which I don't know any of those terms, none of that was correct. But so there's a lot of discussion about the difference between equity and equality. How can you talk to that? Because it seems to be there's some confusion out there, as if we all equal, then it's not equitable, or if it's all equitable, then it's not equal. So can you talk to that?
Sure. Many folks, especially men, when they look around and they see their workforce and they see a lot of women, feel, okay, we've got an equitable workforce and work environment. There's a great visual people may have seen where it's an adult, a teenager, and a small child, and they're trying to look over a baseball field fence to watch the game. And equality is that each one of the three people have a box they can stand on. So now the adult can see over, normally, the teenager now can see over, and the little one can't. But it's equitable. They all have access to that one box. Equity is when you make sure people have what they need in place in that environment to succeed. So giving the 3 boxes to the small child, or giving 1 box to the teenager, 2 boxes to the child, now you have an equitable situation. And then I go one step further, which is, why do we even have the fence in the first place? Let's just take the fence down. But that's the difference. Sometimes equality, you've not walked a mile in someone else's shoes. Our white privilege or privilege as a man can be perhaps not equal because of the situation that's surrounding them, like that baseball field with a fence. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Because there's a good amount of debate that happens online around this. So thank you very much. Another question from our outside universe. For a woman just attempting to step out into the leadership world, what advice would you give her as she starts her journey? What are some of those first steps she should take?
So one is she should absolutely develop her network. So she needs to have a group of people that are giving her feedback on how she is handling the work she's doing, how she comes across in meetings, that sort of thing. She also should start actively looking for mentors and, more importantly, sponsors. One of the things we found in the HBA collaborative is that there's something called the Broken Rung. So at that point where you're moving into the management role, men are moved forward more frequently than women. So then you can imagine that talent pool has more men in it that then get promoted to these other levels. So if a company can really pay attention to that first step up, and that you as an individual woman needs to be very aware that that step is critically important to your entire career. So make sure you understand how the organization is working, how you fit in. And I know it kind of seems silly, but have you told people what it is you want? Do you want to progress? If you're a scientist, do you want to move into marketing? And if you're, perhaps in healthcare and you want to move into the business side, if you let it be known what it is you want, then people can help you. And that's one of the things that I find is there's an assumption that men and women are progressing at the same rate at that early stage, and they're not. Secondly, women don't have access to those sponsors as equally as men. And then the third is they haven't actually said what they wanted. So definitely get that network, because they will be able to give you that kind of advice and feedback.
Be intentional in your ask. Don't build that network before you need it, because you often say, build that well before you have to dip into it, right? And be aspirational in your goals, and think about what you want and be intentional. I think those are great pieces of advice. When you go to give advice to CEOs about how to improve their gender strategy,
proficiency,
what are some of those pieces of advice? Because you're talking to a lot of senior leaders, and as you said, we need men as allies. So what advice do you give them?
So I think the first step is making sure that they are really grounded in the business case. for why women are actually helpful to them as a CEO and to the profitability of their business, which stems from all the positive reasons on why women should be at all levels. Once I feel that person really has that, and I'm not making an assumption it's a male or female, right? CEO, top leader. It's then asking, are they watching their data? Do they have access to data, and do they have people reporting on it? Because if you don't know the data, you're counting on your eyesight. Not a good thing, AKA glasses. Then the piece I go to next is, are you being that advocate, visible advocate that people see you walk the talk? And then the last piece is, quite often people will nod their head and tell you, oh, yes, I believe that, I believe that. But when they are rewarded financially at the end of the year, or whether they get that promotion put in place, you want to see real data. You're expecting progress and what it is, and that will be tied to your performance response from you as a CEO. Those are not that hard to do, and it makes a sea change of difference.
Excellent. I just want to acknowledge that we're seeing a lot of these comments flash across the bottom here.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little choked up. I don't know about you, but Anita Burrell had a question. First, she says, congratulations on bringing the HBA forward as a united force for change. What would you like to see as a priority for advancing women in the next few years?
A priority for the industry or for HBA?
I believe for the HBA. Let's say for HBA.
Very good. So I think we have to take the Gender Parity Collaborative and bring more companies into the fold. This works. That's sort of part A, and part B is then take the learnings from the collaborative and share them really systemically to everyone. We want everyone to have the joy of understanding the secret sauce and moving forward. So I think that's one, is we just have to make sure we are being that collaborator that just doesn't bring people together, but it also then circles the advice and guidance back to companies. So we need to get clearer on who in the company can we share that with, that can do something with it, right? Because there's plenty of us as HBA members would love to understand it, but they don't feel they can do something with this. So we have to figure out how in the company to make sure we're talking to the right people. So I think that's one area. The second area, this one is, I don't want it to come across in a negative way, but positively things have changed. And we have millennial women coming into the workforce who don't see inequities. And they are very surprised when they get into the organizational infrastructure. But until they find out and see that they're not moving as fast as their male counterparts, what we have to make sure is that we keep women and the need to focus on gender parity in front of companies and in front of people. So one of the things that we are thinking about is, as we are getting better at what we're doing, and we're seeing companies, some actually have achieved gender parity. That's how great the collaborative is. So they get to gender parity. What does that mean? So how do we make sure they don't go, box ticked, we can go home now? No, check your data. Is it gender parity for all women? So that's step one. Is it truly equitable? And you have women of, all shapes and sizes and colors that are progressing. We need to make sure that that's equitable. But if we've been doing so good on parity, we're going to nail the equity and parity as well. And then what? Mission ticked, go home? No. What we are thinking about, as we have an incredible, amazing strategic board, we are thinking about, so what? What if we do achieve that glorious day when there's gender equity and parity across the whole healthcare and life sciences industry? Then what? We believe, I know, isn't that a wonderful day? Hallelujah. The next step is, if we have women at all those levels, we believe we will contribute to health access health equity, and better health outcomes. Now, is that not something everybody wants to get excited about and be part of, right? So if you're a millennial and maybe you think there's gender parity, just keep in mind, all of us, we have not won this race. The goal is still there. We're talking gender equity and parity, and then moving towards changing and driving those results into real action for health outcomes.
That is quite a mission. That's amazing. And congratulations on so much that has been accomplished over the last 3 years. But I was there at the beginning of this, so it's taken way more than 3 years. So all that great data that's coming out, those seeds were planted, as I recall, at a leadership retreat in the Pfizer boardroom by Deirdre Connolly.
Deirdre Connolly.
And that's going back some ways. It shows how old I am. So you talked about, I know we don't like to talk about that. You mentioned some of the data that's coming out. I know the HBA has some new data points that are going to be released in the next couple of weeks, but can you talk generally about some of the improvements that you've seen through the collaborative? Because you kind of teased around some numbers, but I think those results are pretty
Sure. Sure. Well, as of a year ago, the numbers were at 12% higher on average across all levels.
Wow.
Those are the collaborative companies, have 12% more women at all levels. And this year, and we will put that data out very soon, it's even better. So the point is that I made earlier, it's not that hard. Companies can do it. And the piece that was so worrying to me is companies did care. They did get the business case. That was a lot of the years we worked on, was just getting that business case out there. But then once they got the business case, they started investing a lot of time and money and resources. And it was at that point, they weren't seeing the results they thought they would see. And that's why the collaborative starts to narrow in to say, here are the steps that you should go through to be able to see the results. So it means companies don't have to just, money here, money there. They can be more thoughtful and strategic on where they place their money. And of course, you always want initiatives that you put in place in your company to be targeted towards your strategic outcome, that's part of your business. So that's what we're trying to help companies to think through. There's no one path for everyone. And I think that's one of the benefits as well that doesn't have data around it, which is that collaborative nature of companies working together. And just think about that. We are known as a very competitive industry, always, trying to one-up each other. When it comes to this, we found a uniting factor that companies want to work together. And that's where I think we will now be able to start to more fully moving into health systems, to the payers, to all the industry sectors that maybe aren't represented as greatly as some of the tried and true things that we grew up together in. And I think that's when we will really see quite a large difference.
One might say a united force for change.
That's a great tagline, Taren.
Look at that. Those are fantastic professional accomplishments, and there are so many more that you can, lay at your feet. But let's talk about some of those personal moments. What have been some of your greatest personal moments of achievement?
Well, just being able to meet some of my people that I didn't think I would ever meet. And I'll give you a couple of those. So I had been thinking about getting my PhD in biotechnology when I was in the UK. We had an opportunity to move to New Zealand, so that got put on hold. But one of the people that I looked to when I was looking at biotechnology, which I don't want to date myself, but that was super early days, and people didn't even know what biotechnology was. And Herb Boyer, who is the co-founder, he was the research scientist side of the house, was absolutely someone I thought was remarkable. And I got to not only meet him, I got to have dinner with him. And I sat there thinking almost surreal. I'm eating dinner with her boy, or I better ask him some really interesting questions. But this guy was so down to earth, and we just had the best dinner, laughing and joking. Just to, it made me realize that sometimes you put people on pedestals and you think there's something completely different than you are, and you realize they're a normal human being, just like everyone else. Another would be Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg. Getting to meet her, she knew who I was and came up to me, and I got a picture, and I just thought, this is like off the charts, crazy, exciting, because she was someone, when you think about it, she's running her, a business, a very large role, and she's still taking time to say, I've got to document this and help other women to learn what I've learned. And then, when you get into the concept of, social rights, activism and that sort of thing. I mean, Gloria Steinem is someone that I was sort of afraid of, right? Talk about feminism. And I met her and had the opportunity to speak with her. And oh my goodness, what a thoughtful, strategic person. She's not burning her bra every 2 minutes, right? She's right. I think people who grew up in the 60s and 70s had that label of being a feminist. And I think we should all be feminists, not just women, men, right? Because it just means you want to make sure that women have, equity to lead their best lives and be their best selves. So that was one absolute personal reflection that I just thought, I'm doing this. This is little old Laurie doing this. So that was pretty exciting.
That is super cool. On another personal note, what are some of your favorite WODI moments and some of your favorite annual conference moments? You've had 15 of each, so.
Oh my gosh, this is like asking me to choose my favorite child.
We know what that is, so.
Okay. I loved it when Charlotte Sibley was on the podium and she said something along the lines of, I've been upsides, I've been downsides, I've been the merger, I've been the mergee, I've been like, she made people see that she's a WODI, she's on the stage, she's accomplished so much. She's a real person who faces real challenges. And I believe that was a real turning point for people feeling that they could aspire to be that person on the stage. And I just attribute that authenticity that Charlotte brings to everything she does. She's always willing to help. She's that to me, servant leader role model is, really important. But, another WODI was Meryl Zeissner. And Meryl was CFO at Novartis, and she had moved into the oncology CFO role. And she shared that she was in a situation where the team was interacting with some patients and their families. And someone came up to her and thanked her for making, these patients were surviving because of that. And she went, oh, no, I'm the finance person. These are the clinician. These are the people, that made this happen. And the person said, no, I purposefully came up to you because you believed in this and funded it. They couldn't have done this without the funding. And her aha moment of the role she played in the team, I think helped people to see there are a lot of roles that we play and they're all critically important. And we need to value that little piccolo that I'll come to in a minute because you triggered me on that. We just had our honorable mentor, Rod McKenzie, and one of the things that he said that I just was, it was so authentic. He admitted as many men, I'm sure if they reflected would, when he looked around his organization, he saw a lot of women. He thought there was an equitable work environment and he now realized through mentorship of him and him mentoring others that women did not have the same opportunities and the same situation that men had. And that's why he's the honorable mentor, right? Because he had that understanding. He didn't just go, okay, I've got it now. He made sure he talks to as many people as he can and brings that into Pfizer to make sure that they are creating that environment. Again, that authenticity that he opened up and shared something about himself. It's not, I've got it all going on. I thought this. You probably are thinking this too, and you can do something about it. And then I would say something about a star, but as Taren, you're a star. I can't say something about you or it would look too schmarmy. So I will say Daria Blackwell. She said, one woman speaking alone can be overlooked, but thousands of women speaking together cannot be ignored. And I still get chill bumps when she said that, because that is the basis of our united force for change. And I want to speak to the women out there, please understand the power that you have when you help other women, when you hold them up, when you link arms. And I'm not saying go tear down the walls. The point is, we don't do enough of helping each other. Right? You don't just have to have one that goes down the trail and okay, now the trail, is there. One is not enough. You need to blazon and widen the trail and bring as many people along as possible. That's our job, but we have to change that mindset, and not everybody thinks that way. You see another woman getting something and you're like, no, you go, yay, go sister, and how come we have more of us? And that's what I would say. Please understand the power we have if we join together in this cause.
Absolutely, bring that elevator back down. One of the other favorite quotes that you have quoted to me before is, it's not about blazing a trail, it's about widening the path. And remind me again, that was Wody, that was
Dr. Julie Gerberding that said that. Yeah, good memory, Taren.
That's a good one. So now let's do the annual conference. You talked about a piccolo. I happen to remember a piccolo.
We had at the Philadelphia annual conference, the music paradigm. And so this is one of my favorite annual conference memories. It was a ballroom where everyone was outside. We didn't know what it was. And when we walked in the ballroom, there was the Philadelphia orchestra spread around the room. And all our chairs were interspersed around them. And we went and we sat down. And then the maestro, who didn't work with the orchestra, this is the first time he's worked with this orchestra, stood up and gave us lessons of leadership about how the person that's coordinating and leading has such an impact. And one of the lessons he shared is the teeny little piccolo with his little sound. He played the music with the piccolo. He played the same piece of music, but the piccolo stayed quiet. And there was a difference. Oh, who would believe that? So you always think about who your piccolo is in your team. Don't underestimate them. They play a critical role. A second memory is piling on buses and the San Francisco conference and going out to visit women-owned vineyards. And that was a remarkable experience, not only to see what these women were going through, because they are, at least back then, this was an oddity, and how they ran their vineyards and how they cared about it and their passion and the bonding we did with each other in going on that trip and learning together was something I will always treasure. That was a lot of fun.
I believe you won a little wine making competition of that.
Hey, if you got it going on, you better, get an award for it. Yeah, we had some fun at one of the vineyards where we could mix together in beakers. And that brings me back to my science background. And I just put together some wine. Came out okay.
I know whose team to be on because I know you had a scientific background. So
I was just right on your coattails. That was a lot of fun. That was great. We have about 10 minutes, so I want to get to your legacy. How would you like to be remembered as the CEO,
president of the HBA?
Well, I hope everyone remembers that I contributed to the advancement of gender parity and equity. That, to me, would be a legacy well earned. It's as part of that. For me, it's about servant leadership, and it's about the people you impact. So while gender equity and parity, it seems very much sort of organizational, and yes, that needs to happen. It's about all those individuals, right? That are advanced, and like I'm seeing some of the. Thank you everyone for making the comments on the screen. I hope this is being recorded so I can go back and read them later. They look amazing, but talking to people where I had an impact. And I'll tell you, my stomach drops every time someone comes up to me and says, I talked to you and you gave me some advice. And I just hold my breath because I'm thinking, oh God, please, I hope it was good advice. Because I usually give advice truly from my gut, hearing what someone says to me, as much as my heart and head. Knowing that I had the opportunity to share and be a mentor, and just be a contributor in some way is, incredibly important to me. But I'll do one quick aside. I do hope my family forgives me for the years that I have absolutely been focused on the HBA and gender parity and equity. I hope my staff team is, they are so strong, so amazing, so wonderful. I love them. And I hope we can stay connected, and I can help in any way, shape, or form to make sure the HBA, goes from great to greater, which I know it will under Susan's leadership. And then thanks to every board member who has put their blood, sweat, and tears into the HBA off the side of their desk doing their other jobs, the companies who have found the money to be a corporate partner and sponsor us, the advisory board that just puts their neck on the line and says, nope, yes, whatever it might be. I am a very, very lucky person. So I hope my legacy is to be remembered that I made a difference.
Well, I think we're very lucky. There's a lot of these comments, as you said, are coming through. And a lot of them have the same tone and tenor. And I want to thank the audience for being so chatty with us, because it's great. But it's about that ripple effect. So you have created somewhat of a tsunami with the Gender Collaborative, and really creating some pretty big waves out there in terms of companies and what they need to do to reach some, to become more equitable and to give people whose voices aren't always heard more amplitude. But you've also had an immeasurable impact on thousands of careers, and that ripple effect. And I don't know that that's necessarily that you appreciate that, but it is. And somebody popped up there that when you were talking about the celebrities, that when people come up to you and have their picture taken, you are their celebrity. So how does that feel?
It was absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy. But it is something that is, when you work in a company and you're sort of a person in your company, one of the things that you recognize is that when you get out of your company, so definitely network within your company, but when you get outside your company, that an association allows you to do, it enables that. you now start to meet people. So what happens is something very similar. You're talking to your colleagues about, oh, they say da da da, and you go, oh, I know that person. And they're like, how do you know that person? And you know that person because of that, the way that we create that environment where it's all about networking with that positive concept of network, not that here's a business card. It's we actually are working together, helping each other. And now you raise up in your company as somebody who knows people and knows how to get stuff done.
And you have been a tremendous leader, not only for the organization, but for your staff as well, who I know very much appreciate you. And as a former board member, I truly appreciate your mentorship and guidance. And as we look to now transition, as you matriculate, and look how I learned how to say that word, what advice do you have to offer the new HBA CEO, Susan Connor, who, for those who haven't seen the announcement, she'll be stepping in right now?
Do you know, I'm not sure it seems like I'm well placed to give her advice and guidance, but Susan needs to make this role her role. I would just ask that she put the HBA front and center in her life and her goals, and brings people along with her, whichever direction the organization is going, or her vision, which is something that is hers to bring to the table. It's about how you bring people along with you, and that's different in association. And I think that will be the piece that I think I could add that might help her, because she comes more from a for-profit, which is a wonderful add to bring to the table. So understanding the nonprofit side and how people sort of come to the table, maybe in a little bit different way, as a customer, it's a little bit different. So I would say it's really about thinking about how you're engaging with people to bring them along in the journey and feel part of it.
Wonderful advice. As you look to decelerate, how are you going to come down to earth at the end of all of this?
I don't know I'm necessarily decelerating. I'm not really a good person to sit on a rocking chair and do something. If I did, I would take up knitting and become an Olympic knitter, I think. So I...
Olympic sport?
I'll go for it. We are going on a cruise. Cruises are back. And I think that'll be a great way to sort of, uncouple. And then we are moving to North Carolina. We have a little property on a river in the Blue Ridge Mountains, that's west part of North Carolina, and just looking forward to setting up home. And then after that, I will see, how can I be of use to my community and the larger community. So I don't know what comes next, but as you say, I'm matriculating to the next thing, whatever that may be. But I will be busy. That's all I know.
There's a lot of knitting to be done on that, I guess.
Send me your sizes and I'll see what I can do.
Like the purple scarf would be good.
Okay.
And my final question to you is, so what's for lunch?
I wish I could say something wonderful. I think Peter Anastasiou said, and I was so jealous, like a chicken Caesar salad or something like that. I am an eater. I like food.
You need 3 squares. That's
you need, absolutely. So I love pizza. I'm sorry, I love pizza. My son is a vegan, and he's helping teach me how to be, more thoughtful in my food choices. So I am doing, I'm doing well. I'm moving that way. So why don't we say a vegetarian pizza? I'm not up to vegan pizza yet, but maybe one day.
Okay, Philip, she's going to get there. So we are at the end of our time, I'm being told. And I don't want to speak for all of the HBA, but I will speak for those that I know. Thank you so much for the last 15 years, for your inspired leadership, for your mentorship, for your guidance, for being so smart when we needed to be smart, for being so thoughtful when we needed to be thoughtful, and for being so egalitarian when you let everybody's voice be heard. It's not easy to have that job because you got to wrangle a lot of cats, but you did it with grace and style. So thank you, and I'm going to miss you.
Oh, thank you, Taren. To everyone, I hope to stay in touch with as many people as possible. It was a joy, even in the hard times where you do have some of those wrangling cats that you're trying to, but the outcome is worth the journey. And I focus very much on the journey, but in that, when you look backwards and you do get to the end, you have to say, okay, that pain was worth whatever it was where we got to it. Thank you, Taren, for your support. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And
we're going to continue the conversation with Nikki Jones, who's going to be our host for the next part as we go to the aperitif part of the menu, or and from 1 to 2:30, we're going to have our Zoom happy hour. The link should be in the chat. Join us in just a few minutes. Laurie.
So you're just dropping in just to say hello, so I get to see you, because you can see me, I can't see you. So I would love it if you could drop in so I could see your face.
Awesome. And we want to thank the entire Cook family for lending you to us for all these 15 years.
Thank you, Taren. Thank you, everyone.